since it was announced, Fae Farm has been a little bit of an enigma to me. Sure, it looked cute and fun, but I struggled to see what made it so special that meant that it was priced around double the price of similar games. I'd held off playing it at first, but a week ago, curiosity got the better of me and I just had to find out for myself. Is Fae Farm fun? Well, I'm a little over 10 hours into the game now, and I'm into the second season of the first year. And while I think I'll have to make a second review in a few months when I've played a lot more of the game, I have so much to say already that I couldn't help but share all my thoughts so far. And just a heads up, they may be a little blunt in some areas, but don't take it as a negative review. Wait until you've heard everything I have to say. Fae Farm starts off pretty similar to your cookie cutter farming sim. You arrive in a small town and you move into the overgrown, dilapidated farm. And of course, there are magical mysteries for you to discover, and the villagers need you to help them save their town. The initial character customization has a range of body types and a wide range of skin tones for you to choose from. I wasn't super impressed with the options for the facial features, but I was really impressed with the choices when it came to the hairstyles and colour. Clothing customization is not an option at first, but this isn't an issue as you do unlock more clothing as the game progresses. The first quests in Fae Farm focus around you getting to know the villagers who live in Azoria. I have seen a number of comments online about the lack of personality with the different NPCs, so I can't say that I was that surprised that during my first walk through the town centre, the very first two vendors I spoke to said the exact same thing as each other word for word. A different NPC who was not a vendor in town did at some point mention that these vendors are generally too busy to talk, which I think is the game's way of getting around why there isn't much variety in conversation with those particular characters. However, as I progress further into the game, I'm honestly finding that nearly all of the NPCs seem to have the same personality, and there's nothing really unique about them except for their jobs, their quests, and how they look. Would it have been that hard for the devs to add at least a little bit more variety in their personalities? It's not even necessarily about the repetitive conversations, it's not all about looks and jobs. Which brings me to the friendships and romancing with Fae Farm. I found the mechanics around both of these a little confusing, as it's hard to know what makes these relationships progress and why. I'll start with the friendships. Early on you get a quest to level up your friendship levels with some of the townspeople, but apparently I had succeeded with this already, even though I'd only spoken to most of these people only once. This is fine, but it's confusingly fast as I still don't understand what I had done to make these NPCs my friends. And then we get to romance. Because of the lack of personality with the townspeople, I'm personally not very interested in romancing any of them, but it's almost like the game is forcing romance onto me. Take for example Jack. Jack spends his day as a lumberjack in a spooky forest. I've barely talked to him, but now I avoid him because he started flirting with my character straight away. This intensity so early on and no option to choose what I say to him to try to stop the flirting is not something I'm enjoying, and I just wish the game would let me get to know him as a friend first. And I'm sorry, but a random man hitting on me while I'm in the middle of a dark spooky forest sounds so unsafe. If that happened in real life, it would not be a good thing. I do wish that there was just a little bit more depth to the townspeople and a little more sense around how the friendships work and why the romancing is initiated. But in saying all of that, there is honestly so much to do in Fae Farm that I can live with the boring personalities and that sort of thing at the moment because I'm too busy to socialize. I'm having fun doing other things. On your farm, you start to grow vegetables, you breed flowers, and you adopt animals to live in the coop. Something I really appreciate with Fae Farm is that the game automatically picks which of your main tools you want to use at that particular moment. For example, if you want to chop a tree, you don't have to select your axe and then start chopping. It does that for you. It saves a lot of time and it makes things like working on your crops a smoother process. The tools also don't take up space in your pockets, which is really nice. Flower breeding is an interesting concept too in Fae Farm, as different types of flowers can breed together to create something new. I'm still very much learning the mechanisms for this, but I am really enjoying what I've seen so far, and I think it's kind of similar to Animal Crossing in some ways, but very much its own thing. Something else I'm loving about the farm in particular is all the customization options. You learn so many crafting recipes for flooring, furniture, food, and more. And while my house is a mess, I am really enjoying attempting to slowly make something pretty out of the space that I do have on my farm and inside my house. I also love that if you decide you don't want something like a piece of furniture or a path that you put down, instead of selling it, you can destroy it and you get back all the materials that you used to make it. So far, I have 2 different kinds of animals living in the coop on my farm. I have 2 chickoos and 2 cottontails. The chickoos, like chickens, produce eggs, and the cottontails are like a sheep-rabbit hybrid that produces cotton. I do love the interactions with the animals so far, and they're an adorable addition to the game, but they're also so frustrating. The fences don't lock animals into a specific area, so they wander freely around your farm. You can place an animal lure, which is supposed to keep the animals within a specific square, but it generally doesn't work. And I don't know if this is a glitch, but only some of the animals actually stay within the space that you've allotted, and others just keep wandering. And the wandering itself wouldn't normally be an issue. But if I'm doing something like watering my crops or planting seeds and one of the animals is nearby, they don't even have to be like right next to you. The game will just suddenly stop what you're doing, even in the middle of an action, and make your character pet the animal. It's such an annoying feature that could be fixed so easily if they just let us use fences to keep them away from the crops. Time progresses quickly in Fae Farm. I'd often find that I'd barely done anything and it was already nighttime. And if you don't head home and go to bed as soon as the game tells you to, the day will suddenly end, even if you're in the middle of something. I don't mind so much that the days are short, but I do wish the timing of sleep worked a bit differently, and instead of automatically ending the day at a certain time, it would just make your character more tired the next day, or have them sleep in a little bit. It's not even so much the fact that it forces you to sleep, but it's the fact that there is no flexibility with this timing, even if you're nearby home or you're about to send your character to bed. Mining is one of my favourite things to do on Fae Farm, which really surprised me. As you progress further into the mines, creatures show up for you to fight. They start off relatively easy to fight and they gradually get harder. They are fun to fight, which is something I don't say often, as I'm not the hugest fan of combat and often in farming sims, and I really love the designs they've gone with for the monsters in Fae Farm. Overall, it's surprisingly fun. I think the music in the mines really shows how great the soundtrack is for Fae Farm. It's immersive and almost cinematic, and it changes to let you know what's happening or about to happen in the game. I bought the deluxe version of Fae Farm on Steam, and this comes with the soundtrack, and I'm so glad I did because it's so good. Exploring Azuria is great for foraging, and each area has a fair amount going on. I love the bouncy toadstools that help you jump up cliffs, and the amount of crafting recipes hidden everywhere for you to discover is so good. The physics for jumping in Fae Farm are something that I'm very much still getting used to. Your character tends to flop around like a ragdoll, and I've lost the number of times I've accidentally ended up in the water, and then I've gotten worked up trying to get my character back on dry land, but instead she just flops around and bounces off the rocks back into the water. At the end of spring, you have your first in-game event, which is a blossom festival. You're asked to grow flowers to help the mayor prepare for it, but then on the day I took the flowers down to the festival because the mayor asked for them, but was surprised to find she didn't actually need them, she just wanted me to grow them. I'm still confused by that one. Arriving at the town hall for the festival, you walk into the decorated building, and while there are a few people in there for the event, there is literally nothing going on. You can buy some seasonal items, but other than that, it's just a pretty hall. I'm hoping some of the other events have more going on because that did surprise me. Some sort of mini game or something to make it not just a reason to buy things would have been great. As I mentioned earlier, I'm playing Fae Farm on PC and it's running pretty smoothly so far. I've had no issues and no glitches other than that possible one with the animals ignoring the lure. I switch between using the mouse and the keyboard and using my controller depending on whether I'm playing in my office or on the couch, and both seem to work really well. I would say that the controller wins if I have to choose between either, and that's purely because the buttons chosen for the actions on the controller seem to make a little more sense than the way that they've mapped out the mouse and keyboard. It seems to be mapped out differently on the keyboard than I'm used to with other PC games, and while that's mostly fine, it does mean that I tend to hit the wrong keys regularly as it's not what I'd usually expect to do, and when you've got that habit it is hard to break. By now, you're probably thinking that I might be absolutely hating Fae Farm from what I've said in this review, but I'm honestly not. The title of this video was intentional, as while I'm finding myself getting frustrated and questioning some of the decisions they've made with designing the game, I am overall having a lot of fun. It definitely has its frustrations, but the things I'm enjoying about the game, like the designing, the grind, and exploring Azoria, are enough to keep me wanting to go back to it. There is so much to do and explore, and I'm still only on the second season of the first year of the game. I'm really looking forward to trying out the online play sometime, and I do want to make my farm as cozy and as productive as I can and discover what other mysteries there are out there in Fae Farm. And while I'm still not sure if it's worth the price, it does have enough in it that I'm glad I bought it. It's $90 in New Zealand and $60 in the US, and while I haven't quite figured out why it's that price, I do hope that I can have a better answer for that in my next review of the game. So, do the flaws outweigh the fun in Fae Farm? Definitely not, but if you're considering playing, do make sure you have a little bit of patience to find this out for yourself. Thank you so much for watching. Do like this video and subscribe if you haven't yet. And if you've made it this far, put a chicken emoji in the comments. Stay fresh, cheers bags, bye!